Hey everybody, it's Dane with Aspire. We're going to pull a little bit of an audible. I know we've already audibled a little bit, making everybody meet via Zoom tonight. We're noticing as we're trying to do our job today that lots of people are losing power, and the power in Denver is very unreliable. So we're going to pivot even further. We're going to send you this PowerPoint, and we're going to make this a self-guided PLC. So this PowerPoint has a bunch of links inside of it. It's up to you to sort of work through it at your own pace. You can do that today. If you have time, you can do that tonight during a regular PLC time. You could also do that throughout the week. We would like to see, there are a couple deliverables within this. We would like to see those within a week. But given the unreliable power in Denver, given the weather, we just thought it would be easier for you to walk yourself through this PLC. That said, Leslie and I are around today. If you want to communicate with us, we could Zoom with you. Potentially, I know Leslie's having some power troubles at her home. My power's been going in and out as well. We could also chat on the phone. Basically, we're here to support you however you need to be supported. And if you have some questions around the coursework or anything or around your teaching, please reach out today. We'd love to work through that with you as power permits. So what's this whole PLC about? I'm going to walk you through it real quickly here. The first thing we have is a startup activity. So if you follow that link, you'll see that we have a Google Doc here. You'll need to make a copy of this and share it with your ally. You can do that by going up to File, make a copy, and then once you have your copy, you can share it with either Leslie or me, or both of us, whatever works for you. Essentially, we've got a list here of 16 different fictional students. Some of the names might make sense as you start to look at some of their qualities too. Those names might make more sense. But basically, we've got some people. I've listed their gender, any academic plans they may have, their academic level, their home language, their general disposition as a student, and any interests or expertise or funds of knowledge. If you're not familiar with the phrase funds of knowledge, don't worry about that. We'll talk about that later in the program. But basically what I want you to do is look through all these, and then here at the bottom, how would you group them? I just want 4 groups of 4. Students are up above there. I would love to see how you group them. And then down here, just a very brief explanation of why. I'm looking for a few sentences. You don't have to write a whole paragraph or anything. But I do want to see 4 groups, 4 students each. Each of these 4 students should be represented in the groups once, and then explain your rationale a little bit. Several ways we can group students. I'm just curious how you are deciding to group yours here. Back to the PLC. Once you complete that, share it with your ally, and then move on. These are our guiding questions. How does the work of teaching become the work of justice and equity? How can we use modeling and grouping as instructional tools in equitable and just ways? To root that in some context, we would love for you to watch this video. So if you just follow this link here, watch this video from Naelia Nasir. She used to be a teacher at Berkeley. Now she works with the Spencer Foundation in Boston. We love her. She's sort of our hero. But she lays out these 4 points for equity and justice. As you watch this, and it's only like 7 minutes of this video, so just watch 26:20 to 33:22. Think about this question. You don't need to capture this or share this with anyone. Don't need to share it with us. How do her 4 points relate to the practical and seemingly neutral practices of modeling and grouping that we do for our students? Now, neutral, we mean as you're modeling or as you're grouping students, that seems pretty innocuous. It seems like there's may not be power or equity or justice within there. I think the way that Nasir talks about this, that she may have a different answer to that. So we'd just like you to think about that. We'll root each of our PLCs in at least 1 or 2 of these. I believe last time we were talking about culture, we rooted it to making space for humanity, and I believe mediating the outside world, all these different cultures, all these different students, how does that work together? Cool. After that, these are sort of our guiding principles for this PLC. Quick note, if you were going to be in person or online, we were actually going to do this. So Leslie was going to model about modeling. I was going to lead a group work activity where you were actually the students in the groups. Would have been cool. Weather didn't allow for it, so we'll move forward with this. But hopefully we have some cool resources for you that will help your practices in both grouping and modeling. So let's talk about grouping a little bit. I taught 6th grade writing and social studies, I think, as I've told several of you. And I would say my group work was pretty terrible for much of my career. And during one of my last years teaching, as I was working on my professional license, I really wanted to focus on making group work really productive, like to the point where it was as productive as me leading the class, or even more productive. And so with some help from some expert teachers, I sort of teased out what I needed to allow for good grouping. So the first thing, and I've linked all these, I have these open. The first one is a clear deliverable with directions. So I essentially made this worksheet, and you would have done this in groups had we done our PLC the regular way. You'll see my objectives, you'll see the agenda. But I dovetail here to something I'll talk about in just a minute, the 4A's protocol. And then you can see that I give, the 4A's consist of making assumptions, agreeing with something, arguing with something, into something you want to aspire to. So then I gave places here where you could catch that. So this sort of together is the objective, the agenda, the protocol we'll be using, in a place where you could like put your notes, a note catcher, so to speak. More on the 4A is protocol, and you'll see that that's the second thing that I linked to, was a discussion protocol. We were actually going to watch a video of some pretty iffy teacher group work, and then you're going to use this protocol to debrief it. But I was going to have you watch the video and say, all right, what assumptions does the teacher make in this group work? What do you agree with in terms of teacher actions around this group work? What would you maybe want to argue with that the teacher maybe didn't do a great job of? And what did you see the teacher do, or maybe something you saw the teacher not do that you want to aspire to at some point? So this was going to sort of be the framework. So what we were going to do, we were going to get in groups, watch a video, and then use this protocol to debrief. But as you can see, this sort of has the whole steps mapped out through it. It's a great protocol to get to the heart of a text and start discussing some of the things you're seeing. In this case, I was going to adapt it from a text to a video. But as you can see, we've got that good worksheet that I spotlit, and now a very clear protocol. The next thing is group roles. So I was going to assign each of you a group role. One was going to be a leader, one was going to be the recorder, one was going to be a timekeeper, one was going to be a presenter. I may have had an errand monitor too, just depends on how many people there are. Please use these group roles as you like. What I did is I printed these out and I laminated them, and then I'd hand them out. But what I really like about this is there's a description about what the person should do in the group role. Then there's even like sound bites or sentence stems of how they can use their certain language and use these words to redirect their team. So group role is very important. Everybody has a key piece, their own piece that they're doing that goes into the greater whole of the group success. One thing I want to point out is errand monitor. I usually say materials manager, something I said too. This is the only person that can talk to the teacher. So if you've got 8 groups, it's nice to kind of cut down those 8 groups to one errand monitor or messenger or materials manager who can come ask you questions. That takes them from like 32 kids down to 8 who are going to interact with the teacher, but it's their job to interact with you and take that information back to the group if they have questions. So the group roles really changed a lot. So to review, I've got that like clear deliverable, the discussion protocol, which is 4 A's, the group rules, which I just went over, and the last thing is peer evaluation. So I would actually have group members grade each other after a task. The one that I use the most is this top one here. So the group member yourself, like say I would put Dane, class period 4, date, whatever. Then myself, how would I rate myself on how I participated, help keep them on task, etc. Then my next group member, maybe Mary, how did she do? And then my next group member, Bill, how did he do? And then I turn this in. I told students I was doing this for a grade. I didn't grade it, but I did keep these as part of their portfolio. It was actually a really cool thing to pull out during parent-teacher conferences when we're talking about group work. I like this one the best, but as you see, there are some different ones. And some of them even get at like group work, how the group did themselves. But you can see this one's more like qualitative, lots of writing, where the second one on there was almost just like checking boxes. You know, it's totally up to you. But having peers evaluate each other at the end of the activity was a really cool way to be accountable with each other and to keep students motivated and engaged. You might think too that there would be a danger of students hurting each other's feelings by rating each other low. Almost 100% of the time I did this, the myself column was the lowest. Students to a person almost always rated themselves the lowest when using this evaluation, which I thought was interesting. Cool, so those are just kind of my greatest hits. My hope was then that we could try that out real quick. Next best thing, since we're doing this self-led, I put in a video from a former Aspire teacher where she really goes in deep on group rules and group evaluations. There's a presentation at the end. But I have some guiding questions for you. The video is about 15 minutes long. Don't feel like you have to watch the whole thing. Maybe watch the first few minutes, see how she sets it up, and then just sort of skim through the video to see how the students are interacting, what seems to be happening. A quick note on that, I did upload that this morning. It still seems to be processing in Google, that video, but hopefully it'll be up and ready to go by the time you're ready to get into this. Great, we're going to pivot real quick to modeling. Leslie was going to do this. I'm going to try to do this as well as I can. I know she would do it better. But it starts out with this link to modeling resources. She has a couple of worksheets in there that should be helpful to you as you move through this section of the PLC. The whole point about modeling is it allows teachers to make the invisible work of reading, writing, and thinking visible for students so that the course content is accessible to all students in the class. Modeling reveals both the steps necessary for engaging in the practice process and the decision-making process required along the way. Now your activity, we're going to ask you to click this Google Doc, and there are different types of modeling that are described. We want you to mark each type of modeling that you think you use in the way of your choice, like a blurb, emoji. You can mark that however you'd like. And then put a question mark on ones you'd like to know more about. Think about what it might look, sound like in your content area. So this is a group document. You don't need to make a copy for this. But say I did this, I might put in an X or an emoji or something like that. If I didn't want to know more, I might put in a question mark. So it's just sort of a way for you to see these things and then sort of interact very quickly. Yeah, I do this. Here's how I do it. No, I don't. And so we can look here and kind of see, what are some areas that maybe teachers aren't so familiar with. So maybe at a future PLC, we might spiral back to this and give you some content that you express some desire to know more about. But basically, just read through this, put your mark as needed within there. Cool, then we have a video here. We'd love for you to watch this video. This is another current Aspire teacher. It's a music teacher, and we'd like you to think about what two types of modeling you see. In the slides, in the notes, it says what we think the two are that they do. I'm not going to tell you right now because I think you can figure it out. But if you want to look in the notes, the slides, we've got it there. But look there after you see the video. Don't get the answer first. Cool. And then Leslie shared some thoughts about what modeling has to do with the work of justice and equity. I didn't do that explicitly for grouping, but I think a lot of these could still apply. Think about who gets to talk and when. Think about who controls a conversation. Think about who has the power to share out from a group. Think about the power of that deliverable that they might be handing in. There are lots of ways to think about justice and equity, specifically around modeling and grouping. Last thing I want you to do is this closure activities. So if you hit this link, you'll come to this closing. Everybody's name should be there. Would love for you to spotlight teacher moves you noticed that we either tried to do in the PLC or things you noticed in the videos that we showed. Then I'd love for you to make a grouping commitment and a modeling commitment. What's a grouping commitment? That could be as something simple as, I haven't tried grouping yet and I want to try it. It could be something like, I want to use group roles or I want to use group evaluation, or going all the way back to our do now. It may be something around, I want to think consciously about how I group students. I notice I'm putting too many of the same ability together, or I notice I'm putting too many of the same language together, or I'm relying solely on choice. Students with their friends and group work is not worthwhile. Similarly, modeling, after watching the video, going through some of the content in the PLC, what are some modeling commitments you can make? So please, next to your name, teacher moves, group commitment, modeling commitment. We'd love to see this and that do now within a week. So that would be by next Wednesday, which is March 20th. Cool. Very quickly, back to the PLC. This is the last thing that I want to go over, just looking forward. So PLC classes, our next PLC is April 10th. The last PLC is May 8th. For this semester, we'll have PLC again, and starting again in August. Then Power School, March 10th, CLDE 2.2 and 2.3 are due. March 17th, CLDE 3.1 is due. March 24th, CLDE 3.2 and 3.3 are due. 31st, the TQS, the Teacher Quality Standards Reflection, is due. April 7th, we want to see the student, or April 7th, we're opening up the student voice module. We'll talk more about that at our April PLC. The one activity will be due by then. Activity 1, we want you to bring to PLC. We're going to use that as part of our PLC. So please complete activity 1 before PLC. We'll send you reminders. In terms of Go React video, we wanted one tied to the CLDE 1.3. That's overdue. That's cycle 4. If you haven't put in a video yet, please do. If 1.3 doesn't work for whatever reason, please give us any video. We need to be seeing you regularly teaching. And then the next video that's due is cycle 5, CLDE 3.2, 3.3. That's just academic language activities in CLDE. We want to see what you teach coming out of that. Few notes. I will be out of town. I'll actually be out of the country seeing family in Sweden, March 16th through the 30th. I'll have access to email, but Leslie will be like the go-to instructor. She'll be handling most of stuff. She was in Chile when the semester kicked off, so I covered for her. Now she's got my back. We've got a nice little thing going. Thanks, Leslie. And then we do want to do classroom visits. We've been in some of your classrooms. We want to hit those hard. I won't be back until April, but that first week of April, I'd love to hit your class, see your class, and I'll reach out about scheduling that. We did want to talk about Go React. We realize that's being difficult right now, and we wanted you all to share some expertise about how that's worked. But we'll kick that to our April PLC as well. Cool. Hopefully this works for you in your situation today. Please walk through this. We'd love to see those two deliverables, the do now and the closure activity, within a week. Leslie and I are around. If you need to connect with us, please reach out. Stay warm, stay safe. Have a great day. Bye.